And we are live.
And we are live.
We were just going through a vocabulary lesson.
SAT practice, really, because this was a standardized test word years ago. Anyway, the word of the day is ebullient.
Ebullient. Karen is ebullient.
So to those of you who are listening, go ahead, try to figure out a way to work ebullient into a comment on the thread for this episode.
There we go.
Channel all of that energy. So anyway, hi everybody.
Yes. And apologies for last week. It's totally on me. Karen was on a well-deserved vacation. I was supposed to host with our good friend Will Leach. Unfortunately, had a personal issue pop up that prevented me from being here. And sorry, I know you're all heartbroken that we missed a week, but now we're back. So
and I will say I was so unplugged. I don't often unplug. But I was so unplugged last week that it wasn't even on my radar to check in. That's how unplugged I was. So I'm grateful to Greenbook for letting me do that. It's just so nice to have a company that supports that level of tech detox when you need it. So
yes. And shout out to Greenbook as well and the team of, when personal stuff pops up that becomes priority. Family first is a mantra, and we live by that. So anyway, but here we are.
So we have a lot to cover. Things that probably came up 2 weeks ago might not even be on our radar right now because that feels like old news if it was a week ago. But we've also there's just so much going on. So full disclosure for a little bit of our process, Lenny and I, we share stuff all week long, and then we try to figure out what the storyline is. And guess what the topic of the day is, Lenny?
I don't know. Could it be AI?
And I just think it could be AI, and it is definitely AI. But here's the deal. All of the other things that, were popping up, and we have some really interesting kind of insights industry developments to share and different types of product launches and all that. But Lenny, you came across this article about former Google CEO Eric Schmidt discussing the kind of the rapid change that we've been in with AI to date. And at first I was like, I'll save that one for later. But when I read it, I was like, this might be the most important thing to talk about because he's basically saying in this that the speed of change that we have noticed is like nothing.
Right. You ain't seen nothing yet.
And in my head, I can't comprehend what that means. I can't even fathom what does that mean if we ain't seen nothing yet, because we've already seen so much in a year, like the chaos and the onslaught of new tech. So anyway, what was your takeaway from that article? And then we'll just hover here for a hot second.
So it was really, there's still advancements happening in the core technologies, right? But now we're at a place of integration and business use cases. And that was my real takeaway of like, look, we've created all this cool stuff and thrown it all against the wall, and it's still developing. But now we're at a place of, okay, let's deploy these tools in new ways that create value and create businesses. And kind of like maybe the early days of mobile with mobile apps, and we're seeing 101 apps or a day coming out, and all that was really cool. Now we're going to see a whole lot more, and the ability for like literally a single person to develop a full-fledged solution and launch that and manage it and deploy it. Literally one person without necessarily a team managing the entire thing by AI. And that type of explosive creativity and innovation and entrepreneurship, that's what really stood out, right? And I think we're seeing it already.
Yeah, what a time to be like somebody with that developer prowess, right? Like another vocab word, right? Like let's just keep upping our vocabulary today. But really, some of the things in this article, which is almost like one part biographical. Could AI help build a competitor to beat TikTok in just a few minutes? Could a dating app match people based on their Netflix viewing or Spotify playlist in minutes? So right now we've gotten to a point where these LLMs we could just give it an idea and it will do the work for us to build it. Is like it is mind blowing. So if we think about research applications for that, the sky's the limit, right? If we trust the LLMs enough, could we ask it to do some sort of integration of tasks? Could you find me consumers? Could you just find me, find me a list of consumers who meet these criteria and see what it gives you back? I don't know. It just is like I'm limited by my ability to think through the possibilities.
Yeah. And I think an important thing to point out here is that not that is the process efficiencies, right? Particularly from a developer standpoint, the human creativity is still necessary to think of the idea, right? And kind of and certainly know how to run a business and implement the business, but just a lot of the grunt work that can be done utilizing these tools, because they're at that point now or soon will be. It's pretty amazing and exciting.
Yeah.
Right. It's, as you said, in the research space, and that's what we'll touch on that in a minute as well. Some of that enthusiasm around these tools are transformative from a process efficiency standpoint.
Yeah.
They just are, and they're only going to get more so. And that's what Eric Schmidt was saying.
Yeah. And, 2 weeks ago, we talked about that. We saw in Product Hunt that Me.bot, right? Which was do you remember that? And I was like,
I do.
We're going to get off this, call, and I'm going to download it and I'm going to see what it's all about. And so I did, right? I downloaded, I have the app, and it asks me to give it a couple of little nuggets of information about what's on your mind, or what do you have going on today? Or I forget what the question even is, because I did it for about 3 days and started to get really nervous because it kind of probes at how are you feeling about that? And I'm like, I don't know that I want to be this vulnerable with an app. I started to get in this very strange place with it where I was like, I like this. And if I had a human personal assistant, I might share all those things, right? I like to share things. I'm not usually buttoned up. But the fact that I was giving it to a platform freaked me out. I haven't been freaked out about much in this space, as you know. This freaked me out because, I get to vacation and it asks me to, check in or whatever, what's on your mind? And I'm like, do I want to tell it that I'm worried about my son driving up from Baltimore to Cape Cod and how much traffic he's going to hit? Do I want to give it that much information about my thought process? Anyway, so that was my first official, this multi-agent concept freaked me out a bit. And then I didn't go back. It's still there, and I keep looking at it, and I'm like, wow, I'm freaked out. So anyway, so I don't know if an early adopter has these nervous issues, I don't know how we get past that. It's all about security and privacy, and also the speed of change just being overwhelming.
Right. So yes, those are the big questions. And I think, there's going to be different by generation. Right? Yeah. I think you and I probably have a different perspective on that than, let's say, our kids, or maybe not. I don't know, but those are the big unanswered questions. Yeah. So, but even at that point, think, is it really that different between Facebook?
Yeah.
Which knows so much about us, it's just not prompting continually about these things.
Right. Exactly. Right? Exactly. It's not asking you for follow-up. It's not asking you, tell me more. If you share,
but maybe they will. Maybe that's coming.
They will. Yeah. Yeah. Cause I don't know that I want to anyway, I don't anyway, cause I think Facebook's question is what's on your mind, right, which I think is, we're used to that. But then the next thing in this Me.bot is, it also gives you some feedback back at you. It says, it seems to me like, blah, blah, blah. Maybe you want to listen to this podcast or read this article. And I'm like, hey, thanks. Like, I don't know that like, I don't know that I want it curating for me and giving me advice. It was a very strange interaction. I mean, really good technology, really a little bit crazy. So anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe we're not quite there yet where we're going to have, bots answering surveys yet.
Yeah.
But that was the experiment, right? That's
Yeah,
why
it was an
you wanted
experiment.
to check it out.
So, yeah, so good timing for Zappi to release this report with the AMA, right? So
Yes.
Zappi, in collaboration with the AMA, released a report detailing, some learning around insights in general and the adoption of AI within the insights function, all as a part of it. And I liked that stat about insights professionals are more likely than marketers to spearhead AI initiatives, with over 35% of insights professionals strongly agreeing on the critical importance of using AI. So I liked that. I just liked thinking that insights professionals are leading the charge.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that data that roughly aligns what we've seen in Grit on, comparably similar questions, about a third. You
Yeah.
know, and then the 57% believe it's vital, the majority,
Yeah.
to employ AI tools to harness consumer data effectively. I think
Right.
that's roughly aligned with Grit when we look at we have a series of questions in Grit about personal use versus organizational use,
Yeah.
right, and attitudes.
Yeah.
And I think it's very similar. So, yes,
Yeah.
because of process efficiencies,
Yeah.
cheaper,
Exactly.
faster, better.
Exactly. And people have been overwhelmed with the amount of data that they have to either comb through or look through. And all of a sudden now they're like, not all of a sudden, for the last year, it's been, making its case that you have an aid to help you with all of that data. And here
Yep.
we are. And it's like, all right, we have an aid. People I think are leaning into the fact that it is a help for them, not something to be afraid of right now at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. So check out the report. It was really, really well done, with Zappi and AMA, and it's both marketers and market researchers, I believe, is the, so yeah, good stuff from our friends at Zappi.
Yeah.
You found the Microsoft Work Trend Index, didn't you?
Yeah, and what was interesting about this one is just how much we've talked before about knowledge workers. So in this next report that Carly is sharing, it talks about broader implications of AI in the workplace. And it's not the first time, I'm trying to think of where, not the first time we've seen, kind of knowledge workers using AI, but this was 75% of knowledge workers are using AI at work today. That seemed significant to me. That seemed like
pretty significant.
big deal, because I'm sure we talked about this. Maybe it was 6 months ago, there was a study and it was still down maybe at 25% or something. So big jump in the last 6 months to, getting to usage.
Like I signed up for Perplexity this week.
Yeah.
So LinkedIn Premium users get a free 1-year subscription to Perplexity Premium. And I've been using, for our long-term listeners know, I've been a Luddite to an extent, and
Lenny read the dictionary before he got on today.
Yeah.
No.
Excuse me.
Sorry, I'm picking on you, but I love it. Okay.
Yeah, we will be assimilated, right?
Yes.
I mean, I am the Borg, Lenny. Because you can't argue the efficiencies.
Yeah.
That for me, that's been is my gradual adoption has been, geez, it is just so much more efficient to utilize these tools to do these specific tasks. And and I think that's what we're seeing here, right? With knowledge workers. I thought it was really interesting. For employees, AI raises the bar and breaks the career ceiling. Leaders are looking for non-technical talent with AI aptitude. And we've talked about that from the beginning, the ability to ask good questions, to frame a business issue or challenge and ask a good question. That becomes a critical skill set in this era. To describe something, when we look at the visual, the text to video and all of that, is the ability to describe things in depth. That's a different skill set. So I thought that was really interesting.
But even that, and this is tied into the other finding that I think I had pulled out about these power users, the rise of the power users that are reshaping their workday and reaping the benefits. if I'm a business owner, I want to know that my team is being efficient, but also that they are better able to manage their own time, like the time management skills, the ability to cover some, like to know when to discern, this I have to do myself, this I need AI help for, or this I could benefit from AI help for. I think that it's not even little, that soft skill of discerning what's AI appropriate and what's not, I think that's going to be incredibly helpful. And I certainly, if I'm not hiring a developer to create something new for my business, I might be, looking for people who understand exactly where we are at this time with our AI adoption, and be like, I need to know that you are using all the tools available to you, because we will not stay competitive and ahead of that curve if we are not, not benefiting. If research takes you a really long time as a supplier and AI is streamlining the process for your competitors, you are going to lose, because the benefit of a shorter, research life cycle will be something clients won't be able to resist.
Yeah.
It's 100%. You have to recognize what's going to happen in the playing field.
Well, I think there's going to be a role for the non-AI driven, very high-end strategic consultancy type of stuff. So,
Absolutely.
right. And let
And those are less, to me, a lot of those time is, when those types of projects used to come my way, or I would be a part of a larger research initiative from a qual side of it, the timeline was always a little bit loosey-goosey, right? They were always like, we just want it done right. Like, we're less concerned about that. We want it done right. I'm talking about we need to, get this communication out there, and,
right.
In 6 weeks, you need to get this done. Like,
right.
I think it's going to be based on the objective.
Yes, 100%, right. And the vast majority of kind of meat and potatoes, general workflow things, that's going to fall in that bucket, right? It's going to be around speed and cost and quality, as it always is.
Right.
With speed and cost, those being all three, right? The more strategic stuff that can jostle a little bit, right? Quality's first, speed may come down at the bottom.
Right.
Yeah. So really, really interesting, great report. And this is, Microsoft looking at what they're doing internally, as well as I think it was a survey as well that they did externally as well. So good stuff.
Yeah.
Do we want to? Well, and good point. So you tried the Dropbox Reclaim. You want to talk about that? Dropbox?
Let me tell you, it's the tip of the iceberg. So Dropbox acquired AI scheduling tool Reclaim. That's on my mind because so much of what we have to do with researchers share large files, right? Like, I mean, I feel like it's like fast transfer was all the rage, or Dropbox, or how do we get stuff from our clients if it's in their proprietary system? How do we download and share and blah, blah, blah. So Dropbox is, obviously one of the players in that file sharing space. So I thought a couple things. I thought it was interesting that they are the ones that acquired an AI scheduling tool, because, and there's a few things down the pike in what I want to talk about today, or what we're going to talk about today, which is like stepping slightly adjacent to your industry with something you're acquiring, or something that you're doing, like the possibilities. Anyway, this Reclaim is really interesting. So for knowledge workers that are tied to their calendar and are looking for time, I just experimented with this, the ability to have it block off time, look at my calendar and say, hey, here's you want to work in strategic planning? Here's a chunk of time when you can work in, looks like once a month you can do strategic planning. Looks like once a week you could work on, employee reviews. Like, it was just a very interesting way for it to look at my calendar and then see for a long period of time where I have chunks of time. That makes perfect sense to me, actually, for my own time management as a manager in particular. And I find it interesting that they are in that game. It integrated with Google Calendar very easily, but all right, Dropbox, I see what you're doing. And I think we're going to see more of that, Lenny. I think we're going to see more. I think I'll jump ahead because there was one that you had found that was CivicScience, and this was going back a ways, but CivicScience introducing an AI tool for publishers. And it was all about like, so here I'm thinking, wait a minute, but they're a research company, right? CivicScience is a research company. And the tool is to quickly transform poll results into something publishable. And I was like, hold up, that's so interesting. And that's what I think is interesting. These looking at these companies that are making moves into adjacent fields.
Mhm.
Again, creativity, ingenuity, like what do you attribute all that to?
Yeah, I mean, well, there's just a business opportunity, of course, right? You want to create stickiness and on your product and expand use cases and usability.
Yeah,
Salesforce, right? Microsoft Office. You look at these, these kind of leaders. That's what they've done.
yeah,
They've become integrated into professionals' lives across so many dimensions
yeah,
that you literally you can't imagine life without them.
yeah,
So they just do so many things. These are the new competitors, right? They're doing that. Now CivicScience is not going to challenge Microsoft. I don't mean that, but
right.
finding new use cases for their core product, which is data, right?
Yeah,
They collect millions of responses every day on all types of topics, and so to find new use cases, it unlocks more revenue streams, makes them more sticky. Of course, same thing. Dropbox, it would become a productivity tool, right?
yeah,
Enhance your productivity. All of those things. It goes back to what Eric Schmidt was talking about, right? I think that's the interesting part is these ideas can be executed on much more efficiently now and piloted and tested in real time without nearly the level of risk. I mean,
yeah,
2 years ago, do something like that. You've invested, hundreds of hours, if not thousands of developers' time, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in development costs. Blah 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 blah. These are like live A/B tests
yeah,
of products now, and that's pretty darn interesting.
yeah, yeah. I know. It's really good stuff. Um, let's talk about can we jump down to some of these other, like
Well,
insight specific things, or do you want to
I
stick?
I want to touch on that benchmark.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Please
the,
go right because I didn't get to take this one in fully.
Well, because it touched on what we were just talking about, right?
Yeah,
So the GTM benchmarks and software revenue. This big private equity investor group um, understanding the how SaaS solutions where they are,
yeah,
and what jumped out at that that we what we were just talking about that software companies make their money off licensing fundamentally. That's how it works.
yeah,
And the measure that you look at for valuation is ARR, right, annual recurring revenue, and users and all those things. And we're just in an era where that is changing,
yeah,
because there's so many new companies entering because the barrier to entry has been lowered, and there's so many existing companies that are trying to stay ahead and adapting and shifting. So it's just really interesting if you're an entrepreneur, particularly an early stage CEO or a CEO of a SaaS company,
yeah,
take a look at this to kind of understand. Here's what's happening across the board.
yeah,
Often we get stuck just thinking, oh, well, what about the research space? And there may be some peculiar things that impact research, but overall, the trends that we are identifying are playing out across the board at a macro level
yeah,
and impacting us as well. So I thought that was really interesting. And as a dovetail to that, and then we can dive into other stuff. The Insight Association shared the C5I discusses explainability and interoperability in generative AI. That's another thing that goes back to what Eric Schmidt brought about, right?
yeah,
So right now we have ChatGPT and we have Claude and we have Mistral and we have all these different solutions, but just like the Apple and Windows and interoperability with different applications and tools, we're moving there too.
yeah,
So and that's going to increasingly be what we will see, where these tools are really kind of being they have to work together, just as our current technology works together.
yeah,
And that's going to be a big part of what we see as things progress from here as well, where we're kind of mixing and matching,
yeah, yeah.
different elements of these different solutions to
Across
create
industries or within like it's really interesting, right? Because it's not just different functions within one industry, but it could be different functions with adjacent industries. It's just an interesting time, and it's all anyway.
Yeah. Well, and
we're going to get more and more of this, right? From going back to the article that we led with, is we're going to get more and more of these interesting pairings.
Yes. And even if you're a service-based organization, let's say from an individual moderator up to, a large leading tech company in the insight space.
Yeah.
All of these things affect you.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
So to some degree, and as time goes on, that degree will increase overall. So you may be, if you're an individual moderator, for instance, you may think, I'm fine with the tools that I use today, and you may be. That doesn't mean it's going to be that way 6 months from now.
Yeah.
Because of the force of competitive pressure, change, and let's be clear, all the technology platforms that we use that are fundamental to us are moving in these directions.
Yeah.
Whether we want to or not, these
Right.
things are going to be introduced, and they're going to change how even the tools that we use every day function.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you will be assimilated, guys. we're all going to be the Borg.
Yeah. So Carly, just FYI, that C5I report, it's above the heading on the brief that says, other news. So it's that last little dangler before Lenny. We have so many things that we can touch on here in the last however many minutes. So, some good product launches, some good, features that are launched. I don't know about Heatmap, but I love seeing when people get seed funding, 4 million in seed funding for, this is a company called Heatmap, a New York City-based provider of analytic tools for e-commerce websites. So to expand its capabilities, I don't know what they're doing that's special or unique or worthy of funding, but check it out if that's the space you're in, right?
Absolutely. And that's one example. It looks like it's web analytics for e-commerce. So where eyes are drawn, I got a usability vibe off of it, but I wasn't totally clear. But there we go. I mean, we use Heatmaps and research every day, right? So taking those technologies, those approaches in adjacent categories works the other way too. So thought that was neat. Cint continues their transformation with the launch of their study creator. The streamlines process of launching brand lift studies. So cheap and fast, efficient, effective. So thought that was really interesting. Our friends at Jibunu launched a new emoji-based feedback tool. So the brothers Barry continue to do cool stuff. I'm a big fan of. I just think it's fun to utilize that as a way to give feedback. I use emojis all the time. My kids.
Have you noticed, sidebar, have you noticed even in our Slack channel, I think our dev team has been adding like new emojis. If you go all the way to the bottom, I'm like, every now and then I'm like, go dev team. Like there's new emojis all the time.
There are. My son likes to send messages just all in emojis. It's like a game, right? What am I trying to say here? So it is kind of fun. So a new tool like that. We already talked about CivicScience, and that was interesting.
This Ipsos thing is cool, right? So I think this was just shared today. Ipsos has made public a takeover of Infos Holding, which is a German company. And I mean, really, I think it's going to be like world, not world domination, but definitely Germany domination between putting these two players together. And I guess Germany was a strategic market for growth for Ipsos. So kudos to them.
They always had GfK that owned that market, right? And GfK is, is positioned very differently now. So
I have to watch for the I don't know. I think whether Dana's going to succeed again this year, but have to kind of see what's on their agenda if they're going to be talking about it there as partners. So anyway, some cool thing to see. And then this last one was also, I just saw this today and I'm like, oh, Lenny's friends at YouGov.
I like that. I don't know Graham.
I know you must love the title too.
I do. So former YouGov head of research innovation, Graham Ford, has launched Punk MRX. So
I just think it's fun. So first of all, we know, we had just talked about YouGov with the Yabble, kind of collaboration that they solidified. So
yeah.
I think that's interesting. And I think it's like, he clearly is like, I'm doing my own thing now. So he's like, I'm not a part of that. So here I go, punk MRX.
Yeah. Well, as a former, in my youth, did you guys? I had a mohawk. Did you guys? I don't think I've ever shared that publicly. I did. I had. Anyway, we're not going to go into it. So I do identify with the punk ethos very much, and still to this day. Anyway, point
That's
is,
not my thing. We would have, if we were in the same high school, so to speak, and you were that, you would have looked at me with my kind of, leaning into Madonna-ness, because I was always, would have been like, I mean, I hung out mostly with a lot of like rockers, people who really just loved rock and roll. But the people that loved punk, they were just not.
oh, I was
look at
leather
each other,
jacket,
really raged, barely.
leather jacket, combat boots, mohawk. I was the full. I was the full 9 yards. But point is that ethos of
Yes.
break things, right?
Yep.
So deconstruct and take and be creative. I mean, that was really kind of the punk ethos. And I love that for an innovation consultancy, on innovative research methods. Hats off to you, Graham. I just think that's a really cool thing to do.
And shout out to Adrian. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna get your last name right. Swinsco. Anyway, I met him at Qualtrics this year. He's over in the UK, and he has a punk CX company.
There you go.
And I remembered when he said that, I was like, oh, something doesn't fit in my head, because again, like anyway, so I'm wondering if there are similarities there, but it's that whole idea, right?
There may be.
Around, going upside down.
I don't know if our buddy Matt Valley is listening, host of the Rock and Roll Research Podcast. Also a drummer in a punk metal band. Matt and I bonded over our love of Social Distortion many years ago.
That common thread for these.
I know. So Matt, you should reach out to Graham. I think that there we go. Let form our own little scene.
Right. And Graham should reach out to Adrian, right? And you should all connect and say, what's our secret weapons here with this genre that we love.
Absolutely. And you got Mark Earls. He is in a ska band. So, yes, just have our own little interesting thing. And I think that's probably a good sign that we are done for the day.
What, that we've devolved to that, or that Carly started to put up some other things? She's like, let's
yeah, she's like, all right, wrap it up.
Here's your codes. Okay, so we Carly just shared in the chat on LinkedIn the discount ticket to 30% off for general admission for IIEX tickets. We have 2 important IIEX events that are still in the works and on the horizon. We have LATAM coming up in September. Super excited for that. That's in Miami. I'm excited as the people that I know that are starting to flow in. It's nice to see. And then our AI event, which is virtual, which is happening in October. And I'm very close to all of that content, less so for the LATAM content, because Rafa, our LATAM counterpart, is doing most of that curation, but I certainly am super close to the AI content and really excited about that. So 2 great events in the next 2 months. So
yep, absolutely. So everybody register. And yeah, shout out to our good friend from Chile, the great, fantastic guy. So it's worth going to LATAM just to meet Rafa.
Just to meet him. So yeah, I know. And I think we've solidified who on our team is going. I will not be there. Natalie Push, my counterpart, will be there. And of course our events team. And I think somebody from our sales team is going. So yeah, I mean, I'm disappointed actually that I won't be in Miami. So, it seems like a good time to go. And you know how I feel about the beach. So
yeah, well, you've had enough beach. I don't want to hear it. I have no sympathy for you. You've had enough beach. I know you spent like 3 weeks on the beach this year. So
I know it's true. It's true. But maybe not quite 3, but between Thailand and Florida and Cape Cod, you definitely know where my heart is on vacation. So
absolutely. All right. Anything else?
I think that's our show, friends. We will see you next week. same time, same place. But yeah, have a great weekend, and we'll take your input, and we'll figure out what next week's show is going to be about.
Yep. Everybody be well. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye all.